Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and we have a trailer for one of the upcoming entries into the Netflix Witcher universe, that being the animated film Sirens of the Deep. Now, this is not the next entry into the Witcher Netflix universe, as far as we know. The Rat spin-off, spinning off characters that were introduced in Season 3 and will continue into Season 4, has yet to get a release window, but it is still believed to come out prior to that of the release of Sirens of the Deep, unless all the issues that have plagued that production will delay it even farther, all the way back to 2025, closer to the release, or at least supposed release, of Season 4 of the main Witcher show. We don't know a whole lot of details about the Rats, but the original release date was set for spring of next year, so who knows if that's going to get delayed with all the issues with the strikes. Perhaps may or may not have been influencing that release window as well. But it is interesting that we are over a year out from the release of Sirens of the Deep, set to release in fall or winter of 2024. That's a long way off to get a trailer, and with it not being the next entry, but 2 entries away with nothing about the entry in between, it seems like there's something going on there. That might just be me speculating, but it is something of interest to note. So this trailer, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I really have very little to say about it because I do enjoy, at least to a certain degree, the Nightmare of the Wolf prequel anime that Netflix did. It had some lore issues, absolutely. I wasn't a huge fan of their characterization of Vesemir, but because they specifically chose an era in the Witcher history where there wasn't a whole lot known, and the decisions that they made didn't overly affect the broader world building and lore of the franchise, it was generally unoffensive to someone like myself who was heavily invested into the lore of The Witcher. But they still came at it with a cavalier attitude, dismissing important pieces of lore. If that continues into this anime, which has more people from the base show than was in Nightmare of the Wolf behind the scenes, directorially and writing wise, that's going to spell a huge problem, because the only way Nightmare of the Wolf skated free with less criticism is because it shows a window where not a whole lot was known. Unlike Blood Origin, where a lot was known and they contradicted every single piece that was known. But from the trailer, it doesn't seem accurate to the short story it is based on, A Little Sacrifice. That one is a very grounded one, focusing more on the relationship between Geralt and Essie and the relationship of the mermaid with the local duke. That doesn't seem to be the focus of this anime at all. Yennefer shouldn't be in the story at all, yet she seems to be. And I get a stronger vibe of this being closely related to Aquaman 2 or 3 rather than The Witcher, just from this look. This stuff wasn't in the short story. I recently re-listened to it just to be 100% sure, but we never saw the sunken city that is referenced. We never saw the culture of the underwater people. And this just seems like a direct ripoff from the events of Aquaman, which is a very concerning thing. Just focus on taking stuff from The Witcher, the one franchise that Netflix has repeatedly shown that they have no interest in taking source material inspiration from, is the one that they need to the most in The Witcher. In The Witcher, to be inspired by the books, instead of being inspired by Game of Thrones, by Lord of the Rings, by every other franchise under the sun, yet not the franchise that it actually belongs to. So there are some concerns with that. I'm not a big fan of Yennefer being involved, of course, and the actors for Yennefer and Jaskier being included in this, because I don't think either of them do a great job. Jaskier is definitely the better of the two and better of the three when you include the actress who plays Ciri as well. But despite all the Henry Cavill drama, despite all that, I do like that Doug Cockle is coming to voice in Geralt for this animated film. There was a lot of speculation. Would it be Henry Cavill? Would it be Liam Hemsworth? And some people did say it would be Doug Cockle. And this is the best of a bad situation. I love Doug Cockle's voice, and I actually prefer it to that of Henry Cavill even. So this I see as a positive, even with that stain of the meta drama behind it. So that is the one thing of praise that I can give this trailer. Beyond that, there's not a whole lot to say. It doesn't look accurate whatsoever. The short story does not include anything from this trailer. This seems to be completely made up, sharing small pieces of inspiration, like the character of Essie that we'll talk about in a moment, but that's virtually it. The other thing that I talk about in all my videos regarding Sirens of the Deep is that sirens and mermaids are different creatures, not just in the Witcher universe, but in nearly every single mythology and fantasy franchise out there. There are distinct differences. And to a normie, that doesn't seem like it's going to affect a whole lot of people, but this is still supposed to be an accurate story delivered by people who care about the source material. They always claim to care about the source material, but that is something basic. That is something fundamental. That's something anyone should have been able to get right. So the title is asinine, especially when the mermaids in the story In the short story, there is not a single siren in it. It is all mermaids for the most part. Why is it called Sirens of the Deep? Oh, because it's a cool sounding word that people will recognize. That doesn't work for me. And it won't work for a lot of other book fans and a lot of other intelligent people out there who are invested in this franchise. But for the normies out there who are just looking for escapist entertainment and nothing of substance, which is totally fine, that might skate by as not an issue for them. But there are a few things I want to talk about, like this information we have from the Redinian intelligence about the release window, about where it takes place in the Netflix Witcher timeline, and the log line from it. So Sirens of the Deep takes place between episodes 5 and 6 of season 1. It makes sense, but the timeline of season 1 is so scattered that doesn't really help narrow it down at all, with how over the top and how convoluted it all was with the 3 different timelines in one. So that doesn't really clear things up for us whatsoever. The release window, again, late 2024, as I said. And here's the log line. Geralt of Rivia, a mutated monster hunter, is hired to investigate a series of attacks in a seaside village and finds himself drawn into a centuries-old conflict between humans and mer people. He must count on his friends, old and new, to solve the mystery before the hostilities between the two kingdoms escalate into all-out war. That is not the description from A Little Sacrifice that it claims to be based off of. A Little Sacrifice is the dark version of the classic Little Mermaid's tale with Ariel. But that's not what we're seeing here. That's not why Geralt was brought into this mess. It wasn't about seaside attack. It was to be an interpreter between a mer person, a mermaid, and a local duke who had fallen in love on sight. That was where the initial motivation for the story and Geralt's involvement in that story began. Yet every single word about this logline says it's not based on A Little Sacrifice. So their claim that it's based on A Little Sacrifice is just as solid as the claim that Netflix has been basing the main Witcher show off of the Witcher books. This is not a good sign, in my opinion. But moving on, again, just want to say Doug Cockle, I love him in the role, and it's great to see him getting more work as Geralt, and this is only a good thing in my opinion, and he seems to be excited. As far as I know, he's never said anything untoward. He's never attacked the fans. He's never done anything aggressive. He just loves this character and this universe. So I don't necessarily blame him for taking this role. Now that we've completed the meta and accuracy arguments of the upcoming Sirens of the Deep story based off the information we gained in this trailer, I want to briefly talk about the characters and the character designs for those who will be in Sirens of the Deep. We've got Essie here, who is known as Little Eye. She has that condition where her eyes are starkly different colors, and it's an important part of her characteristic. I don't see that stark, vibrant eye. Of course, we only see one of her eyes in this shot here, the best shot of Essie we see in this trailer, but her eye isn't standing out. Either of her eyes isn't standing out as much as it should based on her very important character description. That eye thing matters. It matters a lot. But her eyes seem relatively ordinary, so I'm not loving that decision. Perhaps it will be better in the actual story versus the trailer, but that's already off to a bad start, in my opinion at least. And then Yennefer, she is in it, voiced by the same actress who played Yennefer in the live-action Netflix series, but I don't really care because Yennefer shouldn't be in the story at all. She's mentioned several times, but she does not actually participate in the events in any way, shape, or form. And these comments are full of people saying, who gives a crap? And that's something that's present throughout all of these Twitter posts that I've shown you thus far. No one cares about the Witcher Netflix universe. It has so burned its franchise and its fan base that interest is waning rapidly. And no amount of pandering, no amount of going back, oh my god, we're finally getting what you want. We're finally giving you an accurate version of the short stories from the Sword of Destiny like you've wanted for so long. We're finally doing that. See, we love you fans. Well, they're still going to bastardize it, and it's far too late for anything like that. One very small thing that I want to talk about before going on to the behind the scenes when it comes to the writers very briefly is I have some concerns about the design of Geralt in this trailer. Now that might just be me, but all the shots of Geralt we see, he seems incredibly fresh face, and babyface is the wrong term for it, but I feel like his characteristics, his facial features are way too soft. He seems too feminine, perhaps. I don't know how to describe it. This picture does it very well, but this doesn't look like Henry Cavill. This doesn't look like a world-weary version of Geralt. It doesn't have to 100% look like Henry Cavill, of course. It's an anime, but this doesn't look like someone who's been on the road his entire life, who doesn't look like someone who's virtually middle-aged at this point for a Witcher's lifespan. This guy looks like he's late 20s to me. He hasn't really seen a whole lot. Yeah, he's skilled because he's been trained well, but he doesn't look world weary. And that doesn't need to be scars. That doesn't necessarily need to be anything in specific. He just looks so fresh faced. And his experience doesn't show in any way, shape, or form. So I really despise the facial design of Geralt in this anime. In a good story, with everything else being good, that would be such a small thing. But in an anime like this made by Netflix, where there seem to be so many problems with it, it is just another example of bastardizing of the characters and the lore of the Witcher universe, which Netflix has repeatedly shown an absolute abject hatred for. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before we finally get out of here is this information that we have from the behind the scenes. The two writers that we have for Sirens of the Deep are both people who wrote a lot of the live action show, which is only a bad thing in my opinion, because the writers of the Netflix live action show have repeatedly shown that they don't even know the books at a fundamental level. They despise the books, they refuse to look at the books, and they have no intentions of adapting them properly. So with these writers being tasked, I fear for this anime far more than I was previously, and I don't think the small enjoyment that I could get out of Nightmare and the Wolf will continue to the productions of Sirens of the Deep after these people are penned on. I don't know how much involvement people like Lauren Hisrich and Tomek Baginski have in the production of Sirens of the Deep, but their lackeys that they hired are involved, and we know that for a fact, which only spells doom for Netflix's Witcher, Sirens of the Deep, just like it spelled doom for every other attempt Netflix has had going into this Witcher universe. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Anon.
Hey, yo, are you feeling what I'm doing up in here? Oh, I know you are. Do you miss all the good, compelling stories that we used to get back in Hollywood that they ain't putting down no more? I know you missing it. So check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues, baby. Book 1, Down in Flames. Book 2, Apocalypse Then. These are currently on sale. What are you waiting for? Get your hands on them. And we got Book 3, Kill the Dark, is coming down the pipeline. Just wait for all the good stuff that's dropping. You ain't gonna be disappointed, fam.